Over on Jaguar Gator 8, a new college football video is out. In this video, we talk about last Saturday's game between Oregon and Washington, and how a controversial 4th and 1 play made by Oregon might not be as bad as you think it was. Click the card in the upper right corner to watch. And now, on with our feature presentation. Brian Daboll has been one of the best coaches in the entire NFL this season. I'm not sure if he's going to win Coach of the Year or not, but at the very least, he's one of the frontrunners, and there is no denying that. The Giants had absolutely no expectations heading into the season, as they were projected to be the worst team in football. However, Daboll has turned them into a playoff team that has a propensity for winning close games and just finding a way to get things done. It's been a while since Giants fans have been able to feel something positive and have hope, and Daboll has provided that in spades, as he and the Giants have been the pleasant surprise of the season thus far. Heck, I've talked about the Giants and just how shockingly good they've been in a previous video of mine, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Having said that, nobody's perfect. You're bound to screw up every now and then, especially as a first-year head coach. And let's just say that Sunday's game against the Detroit Lions was not exactly Daboll's finest hour. Not by a long shot. Because he made an incredibly weird, controversial, and somewhat uncharacteristic decision in the fourth quarter that, considering all of the circumstances, I don't get in the slightest bit. Did it matter in the long run? No. With or without this decision, the Giants still lose this game. However, it deserves a deep dive, because it truly did not seem to make any sense whatsoever. For those who aren't watching this in the immediate aftermath of the game, here's a brief recap of how we got to this point. It's November 20th, 2022. It's week 11 of the NFL season, and we have an absolutely big NFC game on our hands over at MetLife Stadium between the New York Giants and the Detroit Lions. This game is huge for the Giants in particular, as they enter this one at 7-2, one game back of the Philadelphia Eagles for the division lead in the NFC East. If you win this game, then you keep pace with them for a shot at the division title, and potentially the number 1 seed and home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which is just crazy to think about. However, if you lose this game and drop to 7-3, even though it's not the end of the world by any means, as you're still sitting comfortably in the playoff picture and you're still well above expectations, it's going to be a bit of an uphill climb if you want to have any shot at winning the division, especially with the way Philadelphia has been playing all season. The Giants needed a good outing here on this mid-November day. And what they got? Well, it was anything but that. This was just a sloppy game for the Giants all the way around, as they could not get anything going whatsoever on either side of the ball. Through the first 3 quarters, the Lions, thanks to 3 rushing touchdowns by Jamal Williams, were leading at 24-6. New York's offense went 6 straight drives without scoring, and the normally great running game that got the Giants to this point was completely and utterly shut down, as Saquon Barkley, who might be the front-runner for AP First-Team All-Pro at that position, only had 22 yards on 15 carries, averaging an abysmal 1.5 yards per carry. Still, even though the Giants were in trouble entering the fourth quarter down by 18 points, they were not out of it, as there was still time with a few breaks here and there to mount a comeback. They just needed a touchdown on this drive to cut it to a 2-possession game. And all of a sudden, we've got a ball game again. And sure enough, Daniel Jones leads his offense down the field, and eventually leads them into the end zone, with Matt Breida punching it in from 3 yards out at the start of the fourth quarter. Just like that, the Giants have cut it to a 24-12 game. Now, you know what you have to do. Considering how bad the wind is, and considering what you need in order to potentially tie it up, you have to go for 2 here. Kicking an extra point here, quite honestly, should not be an option when you consider all of the surrounding circumstances. Try and go for 2, cut it to a 10-point game, and go from there. We know the Giants know how to go for 2. They did it perfectly in Week 1 against the Tennessee Titans to win the game. So let's see what Daboll has lined up here, and let's see what great play he's got under his sleeve to try and cut this to a 10-point game. Come on, Daboll. Show me what you got.
So he'll try an extra point one more time. Up and it hits the upright, and that is no good.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll. Daboll got a lot of heat for his coaching on Sunday, and that's putting it lightly. There was his controversial decision to have Adoree Jackson back there returning punts, even though the secondary was thin, and even though Jackson was the team's top cornerback. That backfired pretty badly. There was the really controversial decision that somehow worked out to give it to Matt Breida on 4th and 1 on a jet sweep. That play almost got blown up in the backfield, and if it did, oh man, there would have been a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking the next day. And then there was this awful decision to kick the extra point here, because quite honestly, nothing about this decision makes any sense. So with that being said, let's take a look at why trying the extra point down by 12 in the fourth quarter on a windy day is a bad idea. There are two reasons in particular why this decision was absolutely baffling, and why it might just be Brian Daboll's worst coaching move so far. First, let's talk about the fact that even in perfect conditions, and even in perfectly sunny weather, going for the extra point here just doesn't work, especially from a risk-reward analysis. Let's say you go for 2, which is what I would have done, as well as a ton of other people, and you get into the end zone and get the 2-point conversion to go. Alright, you're now down by 10 points, which is obviously better than being down by 11. More importantly, being down by 10, you know exactly what you need in order to tie the game up. You know that you need a touchdown with an extra point and a field goal. If you don't get the 2-point conversion, and you're down by 12, while that's obviously not ideal, you know that you need 2 touchdowns. In other words, you go for 2, and there is no guesswork. But if you kick the extra point, you're down by 11. And that means there is a ton of guesswork, because you have no idea what you need. What I mean is that if you're down by 10, it's a 2-possession game, for all intents and purposes. You need a touchdown with the extra point and a field goal. If you fail to get the 2-point conversion and you're down by 12, it's a 2-possession game. You need 2 touchdowns. However, if you're down by 11, it could be a 2-possession game, or it could be a 3-possession game, depending on what happens when you inevitably go for 2. It just doesn't make sense from that perspective to kick the extra point here, because the worst case scenario is exactly the same as the worst case scenario if you miss the 2-point conversion. But not only is the best case scenario worse, because you'd be down by 1 more point, but you might be down by 1 more possession. But again, this is assuming that Brian Daboll made this decision in perfect conditions and in perfectly sunny weather. He did not, because he decided, despite everything I just said, for some reason, to kick the extra point in some of the windiest weather out there. The wind was so bad out there that the kicking net, which traditionally weighs somewhere in the ballpark of 30 pounds, so it's not a light object by any means, blew off the sideline and made its way onto the field. Do you realize how powerful the wind has to be in order to do that? That is not a light breeze that we're talking about. That's a pretty strong wind. You might have noticed on Gano's extra point attempt that never should have happened that there were pieces of paper that were blowing around, showing just how strong the wind was. Wind speeds were blowing at 21 miles per hour, and according to the weather report, wind gusts were blowing at a whopping 40 miles per hour. Again, that is brutal to kick a football in. And you might have noticed that the score before the Giants scored that second touchdown was 24-6. No, the Giants did not have 6 points off of 2 field goals. They had 6 points off of a touchdown and a missed extra point. Want to see kicker Graham Gano, one of the best kickers in football, miss an extra point earlier in the game because of how harsh the wind was?
Graham Gano, extra point, no sure thing today with all this wind. And, oh, look at that ball go. Holy cow, you see the wind push that one.
I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. Gano is one of the best kickers in football. He was 18 for 20 on the season on field goals and was perfect on extra points, going 17 for 17. But sometimes, Mother Nature just takes over, and there's nothing you can do about it whatsoever. None of what I'm saying is a knock on Gano whatsoever, because there aren't a whole lot of kickers in football that I would take over him based on his play in recent years. It's like if you're golfing, and you usually hit the fairway every single time, and you're golfing on a super windy day, and the shot is perfectly straight. You hit it well, but as it hits its apex, it blows all the way to the right and lands out of bounds. It doesn't mean that you're a bad golfer or you hit a bad shot. It just means that it's really windy and you probably need to keep everything low to have any chance at keeping it straight. Only problem is you can't really do that with a kick, because if you keep it low, it's getting blocked. So your only option is to just let Mother Nature take the wheel and hope for the best, which is not exactly a great strategy for success. And remember throughout all of this, that Daboll had his team try the extra point, knowing that the weather was really bad, knowing that Gano had already missed one earlier in the game due to the crazy wind that was not subsiding all day, and knowing that, just from the perspective of the score, it didn't make any sense. If someone gives you two options for somewhere to eat, and one option is a place where everything on the menu is 50-50, where you might like what you order, or you might hate what you order, and the other option is a place where everything on the menu is bad. And oh yeah, by the way, they just got cited for a health violation recently. Why would you ever pick the second option? That's what kicking the extra point was here. Making it an 11-point game in the best case scenario is the bad food, and the wind is the health violation, because it's the circumstance that makes this decision as stupid as it was. If this extra point was in perfect weather and missed, I would not agree with it, but by no means would this rise to the level of a dumb decision. More like a really stupid decision that a coach seems to make every other week. I would not be making a video on this. But in this swing, in this weather, yeah, Brian Daboll, I really like you and the job that you're doing in New York. But you're crazy here, because this was not the right call whatsoever. So what do we learn from all this? If you have two scenarios, and you'll know by the end of one how everything will play out, and you won't know by the end of the other one how everything will play out, then take the first option. Don't leave yourself any guesswork. This game is hard enough as it is. Mother Nature is undefeated. Do not try and compete against her, and especially against wins. And when the fates, as evidenced by the first extra point, the fact that things were blowing around the stadium all day that should not be blowing around the stadium, and the fact that the kicking net was a goner, are telling you not to do something, then don't be dumb enough to tempt the fates, especially when it makes no sense whatsoever from an analytical and a score perspective to do so. Because when all of these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Get your official Jaguar Gator 9 merchandise by going to jg9shop.com, and be sure to like this video, ring the notification bell, and subscribe down below if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check out Twitch every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for your chance to play NFL Trivia and win cash prizes. Link in the description below. If you want to see videos like this condensed down to 60 seconds, then follow me on TikTok at JaguarGator9. To see college football videos, subscribe to JaguarGator8. To see highlight videos of players throughout the history of the NFL, subscribe to JG9 Highlights. Also, special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters who help get the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. So you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.